Hey y'all, welcome to the conversation. This is Tea and Coffee, and I am Jasmine, and we are going to be discussing matters related to motherhood and money. Today, I have two special guests with me to discuss entrepreneurship and motherhood. I've got Audrey Wrushen, and I've got Kabiera Ahlers. And in just a second, I'll let them tell you a little bit more about themselves. But I'll just tell you a little bit about how I've met each of them. So Audrey, we've basically been Facebook friends for years because I was connected to her through her husband, who I was in a commercial with, and I've just been stalking her and and following her life and liking her pictures. And so when I decided to do this podcast, I was like, she would be perfect for it. I'm so glad that she agreed to come. And Kabiera braided my hair last year. I was very pregnant, about as far along as Audrey is right now, and I was like, I don't want to be messing with my hair when the baby comes. And so she braided my hair, and I started talking to her, and I was asking her hopes, dreams, and aspirations because she was so interesting to me. And we've kept in touch. We're in a small group together now, and so I knew that she would be perfect for this episode as well. And so, just to get started, tell us, I'm going to start with you, Audrey. Tell us first off what coffee you're drinking, and then also the ages of your babies and what you do.
Okay. Well, this is a caramel frap, okay? There's nothing better than that. Good old caramel frappuccino. My name's Audrey Wrushen. I have 3 babies and 1 on the way. My oldest, she's 8 years old. Her name's Rosita. And then my next is Michael. He's 4. And then my little baby girl, she just turned 3 yesterday. So we're trying to get her ready and let her know she's not going to be the baby anymore pretty soon. And I'm an accountant. So recently just turned into a virtual accountant, and I can talk more about that later on. Mm-hmm. But yes, that's my profession.
Awesome. And what about you, Kabiera?
So I'm Kabiera MacMillan.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Ahlers is my maiden name.
Oh, okay.
So I'm drinking a green tea on sweet. It's delicious. So I have 2 children. My oldest just turned 6, and my youngest is 3. And I don't know if I'm having any more. So, but we'll see. You never know. And I'm a braider. That's what I do. I braid hair.
Awesome.
Yep. That's awesome.
And I'm Jasmine. I'm drinking a caramel macchiato with oat milk. And I have a son who is 2.5 and a daughter who will be 1 at the end of this month. And I do a little bit of everything here and there. Some real estate, and then also just some acting and modeling. And so I'm just dabbling in a lot of things, and I'm always so curious about how moms are making it work. And it seems like entrepreneurship can be very mom friendly. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I thought that this discussion would be important. Mm-hmm. So I want to start off by citing an article. So on CNBC posted something. Let's see. So Black women are the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs in the U.S. And I've heard this statistic for years now, that Black women have been the number one, like, in terms of entrepreneurial growth. And just like the start of this article, it says Black women make up less than 10% of the U.S. population, but they've emerged as the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs, according to new research from GoDaddy's research firm. And then it said the number of Black women-owned businesses in the U.S. was trending upward even before COVID-19 pandemic, but that accelerated entrepreneurship overall. Between 2017 and 2020, the number of Black women-owned businesses increased by nearly 20%, far exceeding the growth of women-owned businesses and Black-owned businesses overall, according to the Brookings Institution. So I imagine this is something that's, you know, it's becoming more and more common. And then I'm thinking, like, how many Black women do I know that even if they have a W-2, they also have a side hustle?
Yeah.
They also have a
Right.
side business.
Yes.
And so it's just really interesting to me, and so I'd like to explore that a little bit more.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first topic that I want to talk about, so you are both beautiful women of God, and I know that that informs your view of motherhood and just how you prioritize things. So starting with you, Kabiera, we're going to go back and forth. What is your relationship with God? Like, how did that start for you?
Oh my, it's a long story. I could go on for days, but I'll give the short version. So I grew up, born Muslim, grew up in a Christian orphanage, got adopted, and grew up Christian still. So I accepted the Lord and got baptized, I think in 2010. And then around 2016, I got married and left my family's nest and grew my own wings and, started deciding and making decisions for myself and just finding out the world for myself because I was sheltered growing up, homeschooled and everything. So when I got married, I was like, oh, there is more out there than what I knew, what I knew as a child. So when I got married, we started doing a whole lot of craziness, like partying all the time, every weekend, just partying and just going out. Even with the children, we had kids. We'll have somebody watch the kids on the weekend, and we go and party. It was the life. We had all of our friends partied. I mean, it was all about parties. So it wasn't until earlier this year the Lord He just captured me. He was like, "You need to come back. Like, you are doing too much." And I was doing too much. It was starting to go just down. I don't even know where I was heading, And He was like, "Girl, come back." So now I'm back with the Lord. And like Jasmine said, I started a little small group with another friend, and she's in there with me. And it is great. I'm on fire for Jesus, and I'm not going back. And I'm thinking about just getting like re-baptized. I feel like I'm to that point where there is no going back. Like before I got baptized as a preteen, and I was like, it was great, but now I'm just like, I can't go back because I know better, But yeah, that's the short version of my story. I love Jesus. I'm obsessed with Jesus right now. So, and I hope that fire don't die out.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, what about you, Audrey?
I'm just taking in what she said.
I was like, ooh, yeah.
Got chills. That's an amazing story. I didn't start off knowing about God, as a child. But when I'm from Detroit, and then I moved to Tennessee to live with my aunt and uncle, and they introduced me to Jesus, and so I accepted Him at the age of 11, got baptized at 11. But when you get baptized at a younger age, a lot of times, you're not on fire like you should be. And so you start living your life and trying things out. And then sometimes, in my case, I really wasn't on fire for the Lord. I knew Jesus. I loved Jesus, but I wasn't ready to give my life to Him like that. So I made a lot of mistakes. And, it wasn't until I was tired of all the, the partying, the drugs, the promiscuity. And then I started to seek the Lord because I was like, I'm tired of this. And then He started to turn my life around. I met my husband. And then just things started to turn drastically, So when I got married, that was in like 2013. I got an opportunity. My husband and I had an opportunity before we had any children to go to Israel.
Wow.
And we were both on fire for the Lord. And we decided to get baptized in the Jordan River.
Wow.
So it's like,
That's cool.
Yeah, so it was very, and renew our vows, even though he had just gotten married. I mean, like, we got married in 2013, but it was just beautiful.
Yeah.
It was just a way for me to say, God, you know what, this is real. I really wanted to, and it was just so beautiful, to be able to do that. Now I'm not going to say after that, everything was just perfect and roses, but it was a step in. It was a real step towards God at that point. And then I got to just go on this journey of just growing with him, making mistakes, but then also just like growing with the Lord, and just like me and my husband, we've just gone on such a wonderful journey. And now our relationship with God is more mature. And I think it's just more weighty now. You know what I mean? Whereas when we first got married, there was just like a fire, but kind of like I'm just ambitious, but I'm flying around at the seams. You know what I mean? Don't really know what I'm doing. I just know, I love God. But yeah. So that's my short. Very short.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's so. What you were talking about, sort of, you call it flying at the seams. Somebody, after I became a Christian, told me that I had zeal without knowledge.
Yes, that's what it was.
Yes.
I was offended, but then years later I realized
You realize
you're right. I was just like, woo, all right, and then I'm just preaching things, and they're like, that's not biblical.
That's not and because we've been there, I have a grace for people who have the zeal without the knowledge, whereas opposed to where I used to be like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. She's a false prophet. Like, not everybody's a false prophet. They just they're just
excited.
They just be wrong sometimes.
That's funny. Okay. Okay. So my story. I grew up in the church, and I grew up in South Carolina, near Charleston, South Carolina, and that was all good. Kind of like a lot of people in the Bible Belt. It's what you do. It's cultural.
Yeah.
And so got baptized when I was like 10 years old. I was like, this is like a rite of passage. This means that I'm going to listen in church,
Yeah.
But I didn't fully understand what it meant. Like I went up and he goes, are you ready to ascend to the stairway to heaven? And I was like, I think so. and so I was like, I'm going to start trying to be a good person. And so anyway, like that didn't really, it was just, it was a cultural, social rite of passage. And then when I was 16, that's when I was just like, I was going through a hard time. My parents were getting divorced. There's all kinds of like just shaking happening in my life. And I remember I was reading one of those free daily bread books that they would hand out in church, and it was talking about surrender. And I was like, all right, Lord, like if you're real, like take me now. Like and that was a moment where my life changed. Like from that point, just in my room by myself, and so from then I was like excited. I was on fire. I was listening to Shirley Caesar all the time because that was the only person I just became an old person, but I was excited. And then I went to college. I was even more on fire. I got into ministry. But then I had that zeal without knowledge. And I wound up getting kind of like knocked off track. And I was thinking I was on track, but I wasn't. And it was like 10 years of that. And then one day it was like a wake up call. I was like, this is not, you know better than this. Like, this is not, who I've called you to be. And so from that point on, like after that, I was like, okay, I need to get the knowledge. I need to know what I'm talking about. And, so that I'm able to actually live with integrity. And that I have this anchor that I can build my life on. And after that, then it was just like boom, 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 boom. Like stuff started falling in place that I think had just been held back because of my disobedience or what have you. And then it was just like all of a sudden all these good things just started happening where like for 10 years I felt like I was cursed. Like everything I touched would crumble. And so anywho, that, and ultimately like that happened, that sort of rededication happened in 2018, I believe. And then over the course of the next year, I had a state pageant title. I bought a house. I met my husband. Wow. It was literally everything was just waiting for me to act right.
Wow.
And then it was like, all right,
That's
here you go. Like, redeem the time.
Oh my God.
So,
Is he not a redeemer of
Right?
time?
Yeah.
'cause at this point, I'm in my 30s. You know, I was in my
Yeah.
early 30s, and I was thinking all this stuff was supposed to happen in my 20s.
Yes.
And it was just like, well, maybe it was, but you weren't ready for it. You would have
Right.
destroyed it. So,
Oh my gosh.
and then
Wow.
a year after I got married, 9 months after I'm married, I'm pregnant with the first. 5 months after that, I'm pregnant with
Oh, wow.
the next. And so, yeah, it's just been boom, boom, boom. And so it's been such a learning process. And motherhood, I think, has been one of the most, I've been the most pleasantly surprised by it. Because I knew that I wanted to have kids, and I knew that, there would be something in me that would love it, but I didn't realize how it would transform and how fulfilling it would be. I didn't expect it. It's overwhelming. I expected that. It's tiring. I expected that, but I didn't expect to find such purpose in it too. And so, a lot of that was birthed from this. And and then also, I'll go ahead and share this story. The whole idea of tea and coffee was a dream that I had. I had multiple dreams that I had. It's called tea and coffee because that's what it was called in the dream. I don't know why else to call it that. But it was. I remember just seeing. It was Black women or Black people around a table discussing controversial topics. And this was in 2013, the first time I saw it. And I was like, I don't like controversy. But I didn't know the theme of it. I was like, well, I'm not going to push that too hard. Like, the Lord will reveal it whenever he needs to reveal it. And so then it wasn't until I was pregnant with my daughter that I was like, I kept trying to figure out what is tea and coffee, like every year. Just, what is this thing? And then it was like, it just sort of dropped on me, motherhood and money. And I was like, oh, and that's why I had to wait. Because
you
I wasn't a,
Yeah.
mother for
Right.
Yeah. Wow.
So that is, that's where that has come from. So I figure, why not share that on
That is pretty
the
cool.
first episode?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your openness and vulnerability with that, and just starting off heavy right here.
Well, I'm honored to be a part of the first podcast.
I know. That was like, woo. We are special.
I
Yes, you are. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is, and I'll start with you, Audrey, for this one.
Yeah.
What was your experience with your mother?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. I actually, I don't remember my experience with my mother because her life was cut short. I was about 1 year old when she was killed, and so I've had mother figures throughout my life, but I've always had a very fractured view of what motherhood really meant, So, I don't know. I don't want to go too far in because I know
Go where you're
if we talk about
comfortable.
So I mean, I just never had a true sense of what it meant to be mothered, what that looked like, and then the vulnerability towards women. Because when you have a mother, it teaches you how to be open to women, how to interact with women in general. So I spent a lot of my early years just trying to figure out who I was, like my identity, because a lot of your identity is in your parents. You see yourself in them. So I knew stories, and I latched on to certain stories, and I kind of applied that to myself. But as far as knowing how to mother, I was like all on my own. I was just trying to figure that out. So yeah, I didn't have that experience. But what I can say is that because of that void down the line, it forced me to have to lean on God because I didn't have a blueprint, and so it actually made me realize that I had to start the foundations of what a mother looked like within my own household and not look to someone else. I mean, not my family, not social media or anything else, like the foundations, the systems that I put in place in my own household. they had to come from me and the Lord, you know, and I had to be confident in that. I wasn't for a while, but I had to go through some shaking to, you know what I mean? Because when Zay and I first had our daughter, our first one, oh my God, there was just so much. I didn't know what, because I wanted to be that perfect cookie cutter mom. I didn't want to make the mistakes that my mother had made, which, you know, ended in her demise. I didn't want to do that. So I tried my very best to be what that quote unquote perfect mom was, you know, which you see on social media. And I just couldn't live up to those expectations. And so I just kept on feeling like a failure, you know. And and it made me I had to learn a lot of those things. After my second and third child, it was just kind of like you realize that a lot of the things that you see online is not real.
Yeah.
It's not practical.
Nope.
It's not real. And even if it works for somebody else, doesn't mean it works for you. And children are so different. You can't parent them the same. And what I have in my DNA and the experiences that I've gone through is for my child.
Yeah.
So what comes from my mind and my spirit is for my child. And I can't get that from external places.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It has to come from me. And if it doesn't look like somebody else, that's fine. It's not supposed to look like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's my experience.
Thank
Wow.
you. Thank you. Yeah.
That's crazy. That's crazy and cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
So what about you kids?
So me, huh? Okay, so like I said, I was adopted, so everything I'm gonna say here will be about my adopted mom. So, my relationship with my mom, huh? Lord. Okay, so when I first got adopted, my family already had 7 children, and then they adopted 5 of us. And then, you know, when we came a year later, they had another one. So they have a lot of children, and I don't want to cry. I don't, you know, so I'm not going to do a whole lot of. I'm not going to talk too deep.
I just
into
grabbed
it.
this.
Yeah, right. But
I brought my Kleenex.
I probably won't cry.
Okay, well,
I'll try not
to.
to. But so when we first came, the youngest was almost 2, and the oldest one of us to be adopted was 18, I believe, or 17, about to be 18, and then the oldest son was already 18. So I'm like dead in the middle over there. But when we first came, because we're already teenagers or preteens, we kind of just got right into the work mode. So we just, like the older girl who got adopted started like just cooking. She would cook all the time, which was great because, I mean, they didn't know how to cook our cultural foods or anything like that. But it was like she, you know, if she was cooking our cultural foods and they didn't like it, she still kind of had to cook something else for them. So it was, we took over the motherly role, is what I'm saying. Like, we started cooking and cleaning, taking care of the kids, because we love kids and we are work people. So we just worked all the time. We got up, we made our beds. That was something they didn't do, you know. So it was something like, and then if we didn't make our beds for one, then mom got angry with us. But it's like, this is something I already brought here.
Yeah.
So the relationship was kind of like at arm's length, I guess. It felt like we couldn't get close enough to her. So she's still alive, and I don't want to say too much to hurt her, but I also want to speak the truth, you know.
Yeah.
But the relationship was just at arm's length. It still is, even as adults. Like, she's always like, I wish you would call me to show that you still need me. I'm like, you're the mother. Like, if my kids grow up and move out, I'm gonna be checking on them. You know, if they don't call me, I'm gonna call them. But it was just we couldn't make mistakes. We weren't allowed to be children. We weren't allowed to. I mean, we played, but after playing, we kind of had to get back into mommy role. And you know, the boys that I was adopted with, they like just started cleaning or doing yard work. You know, we are new here. We don't know anything about your country. You know. I'm sorry. I was just. It's so much.
Yeah.
You know, it's so much, and I don't even know where to start. My brain is all over the place.
Right.
But the relationship is still not good. Even to this point, it's not good with her biological kids because it's just, I don't know if it's who she is or whatever, but the love is cut. Like the love, it's not like the love I have for my kids. It's not what I felt she had for me. And yeah, I may have been adopted or whatever, but if I adopt a kid, that's my kid. You know, I'm going to show that love to my kid. You know, but it was always a picking and choosing kind of love. Like it showed that she loved her kids more than she loved us. You know, and most of the kids saw that. Most of the biological kids, they saw it, but because they were young, there isn't much you could do. They have apologized to us now that we're older. Like, I'm sorry, you know.
Yeah.
But
That's good.
you know, and we do have good relationships with I have great relationships with my adopted siblings. Working on the relationship with my mother, you know, I've told the Lord I have forgiven her, but I think I need to tell that to her, and maybe just because she don't know none of this, you know, I need to actually sit down and talk to her. Just tell her, you hurt me, you know, she put her fitness and her shopping and everything above us. Her shoppings came first. She had to go to yoga. We had to take care of the kids. And I'm a preteen. I don't know anything about children. I didn't grow up raising children. How am I supposed to help with your kids? And if I didn't do something how she wanted it, that was a problem. I didn't get beat or anything, but just the verbal abuse. Yeah, the emotional abuse, the verbal abuse, all of that just is worse than physical abuse because you keep that forever. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I answered the question, but it's so much, and I'm trying not to cry, but it's a lot of hurt.
Yeah.
So the relationship with my mom is almost non-existent. So
That lack of grace.
Yeah.
Sounds like, and
yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
not feeling like you're the actual child.
Right.
Of her.
Yeah.
Having to raise yourself almost.
And her kids. Yeah.
No, I get that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had
Yeah.
some aspect of that, you know,
Yeah.
just having to raise yourself a little bit, try to figure things out a little bit.
So now that I have my own children, I'm doing the complete opposite.
Yeah.
Like, you know, my daughter, I let her come to me if she wants to help with the kitchen. I don't ask her. She's only 6. I mean, yeah, you might do a little bit of work here and there, and I hope I'm not hurting her for the future by not letting her start so young. But I let her come to me like, Mommy, you're in the kitchen. I want to help you. It's not you're 6 or you're a child, come in the kitchen and help me so I can teach you,
Yeah.
you know, things like that. But I am trying to raise them the complete opposite from what I was brought up with. Just, yeah, so they can be children,
Yeah.
you know. When the time comes and you're a teenager and you feel like you want to learn something, I can teach you anything you want to learn. You know, that's great. I know a lot. I can teach you. So, yeah, taking it a little bit at a time, I guess.
Yeah.
The healing process or whatever.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Well, okay.
Lord.
Deep.
Okay. So my relationship with my mother, it's it's up and down. So like my mom, I can tell that she tried. My mom's mom had her at 14. So just to give like for her experience, she was brought up with her dad who was abusive. So she was the one trying to learn how to mother, not having been mothered, because then she's the oldest of 11. So she was that one having to be the parent figure. So then when she had me, I was unexpected. Her and my dad were like a fling.
Yeah.
And while she was living in California, that's where she grew up. And then my dad had already moved back to South Carolina. And, he found out she was pregnant. And so he was like, all right, I'm going to take a bus from South Carolina to California. And we're going to figure this out. Because he's old school. And he said he always wanted a daughter. He was excited about it. And I know like my mom was stressed. My mom wanted to be a doctor. And, circumstances, she wound up being like homeless, and she had gotten into Yale, but like, because of her homelessness, she flunked a class, they revoked her acceptance, all these things. So like my mom had come from a lot of disappointment, and then having a child, I think, is just like adding a layer to that. And I could sense that, growing up. I could sense, like I always kind of knew without them telling me that I was not planned. She'd say things like, you better not have no babies because it'll ruin your life. Just like, wait a second, let me put one and together. And I have 2 other siblings, but they came after my parents were married. They were already settled.
Right.
She had started her career as a nurse. My dad was established versus them being 21. Neither of them having a job when she was pregnant with me, and then having to move in with my nana in the boonies of South Carolina, for a while. There was a lot of stress around my birth. And so I always kind of felt like I was my mom's little sister. But also I could tell that she was trying to break a lot of generational curses. And it was just very hard for her. And so there was a lot of the things that I could see, and she's apologized. She went through therapy for many years. And then like, I think it was like when I was around 30, she'd gotten a really good therapist, and she's like, she just started apologizing to me. She's just like, I'm remembering stuff. Like, I'm remembering how, like, I was always the gentle-natured one. Like, my sister, she'd come right back at you. Like, and she had all the emotional energy, whereas I was the sensitive one. And, like, she sensed that, so it was kind of like, and my mom grew up in Oakland. She was just like, soft people don't last, so let me be mean to you so that you're prepared for the world. But that didn't have that effect. It just made me afraid of women. And so she realized that as she got older, but she was just in survival mode for so long. And so she was a nurse, she worked really hard, and she said that, she told my husband this recently, but she said that she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom after she had me, but my dad was not okay with that. Like, it was just the stress of them both starting a career and then it all being on him. And so she said she wanted to find a way to make that work, but as a nurse, she was making really good money. My dad's a UPS driver. That's a good steady job. And so financially, they did. We're in a nice middle class neighborhood. They gave us a lot of opportunities. But yeah, I just kind of always felt like she actually told me I was lame a few times. I was like, she thought I was lame. So, anywho, now that I'm an adult, one of the things that I want to keep that my mother has taught me is that, like, she really worked hard to try to, like, help us to have opportunities and make sure that we didn't fall in her footsteps. And she had a lot of processing to do, but she tried to do it. She was trying to put in the work to make it happen, even though it took a lot of time. The things that I want to do differently is, like, I'm really aware that my kids are humans and that they have emotions, and that, like, the Bible talks about do not provoke your son to anger. Like, it's not, you're not just like this little thing, your emotions are important and valuable. Like, as an adult, I have struggled with expressing negative emotions to my detriment, and wound up in, like, relationships that were toxic with women and men. Actually, more so toxic female relationships. I found, because my dad was, I was daddy's girl, and he was always he's the one that I would run to. And so it's kind of interesting how that played into where I would take abuse from female friends, but I was not playing with a guy because I had a dad who was like, you don't need to take that, you know?
Right.
And so, so yeah, that was my relationship, and it's, you know, we're still learning each other, and I grieved what, you know, the sort of ideal best friend mom, like I grieved that's not going to be the thing. And we're getting to know each other as adults, and I'm recognizing she is a human and trying to just move forward with that understanding. So
it's just so crazy how like the parenting that you get manifests in how you raise your kids. You know, whether you're aware or intentional about it or not, it's going to affect. Like, it's definitely generational.
Yeah.
When you said generational curses, like that's like I feel like the thing. Like I'm definitely trying to break the generational curses. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like my first daughter. Before like in middle school, I said my first daughter was going to be named after my mother, and I didn't really. Like, I didn't know why exactly, but now I look back at it. I mean, I wanted to write the story over.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? I wanted there to be some rectifying, some redeeming, and I wanted it to be through my daughter. You know what I mean? Like, it was like, it had to be something that got put in my heart for a reason, because that's literally how things are playing out. You know what I mean? So, yeah. Because what I couldn't change in my own life, because a lot of things that my mother did, I ended up doing. You know, because I just didn't have the tools or the awareness to know this is coming from something spiritual, this is coming from something genetic. And it's just, I just made a lot of mistakes, you know, but I recognized them in time to just stop it when it came to, you know, when my children came. There's still things that, I mean, I'm sure we all can relate, like when we realize, okay, so I'm sounding like my dad when I'm studying. Like, you know, like, I need to let you vent out your feelings, even though it's, you know. Yeah, like there's a lot to work on, but at least, you know, that's what's so good about having that relationship with the Lord, because you got what you need to stop what you went through, you know? So I feel you.
And to own up to it, to say, like, I don't want to repeat this. Like, it's not just a rite of passage. Like, hey, this is, you know, this isn't great. So, and I have a power that helps me change it for the future. So that's good.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I saw a picture of your daughter. Was she playing like the violin? Is she playing the
Yes,
violin?
so cute.
Oh my goodness. Okay. But thank you for sharing. Okay, so now we're going to get into the money part. And I'll start with this one. How do you interpret your mother's relationship with the household finances? And, you know, did she work outside of the home, autonomy over money, breadwinner, what have you? So my mom, as far as I can remember, was a nurse. And I was 2 when she graduated from nursing school from Medical University of South Carolina, which is a prestigious medical school in South Carolina. And she was making decent money as a nurse. And, you know, she's very ambitious. She's been like every kind of nurse. She's been an operating room nurse. She's been a wound care nurse. She's been a health and occupations teacher. She's been a school nurse, you know. And so my mom has been very good with money. The thing is, like I mentioned before, she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom that she expressed. And there was a level of stress that came with her trying to be the mother she wanted to be and working many hours in a very stressful environment. Because I remember reading something when I was working in human resources. The medical field and the education field are some of the most toxic occupations in terms of culture. And I remember my mom talking to a friend who was in nursing school, and she was like, just get through it. I know that they're mean to you, Like she didn't even have to ask for anything. She's
Oh,
like,
man.
it's hazing. It's every program.
Mhm.
Like, and she's like just gearing this girl up. And I'm like, gosh, Mom, what you been through? Like, I guess
Yeah.
Oakland prepared you for nursing
Yeah,
school.
right.
Like,
Yeah.
it's just like, it sounded really bad. And even now, like my mom has been a nurse for over 30 years. And I remember she was at one job. She was like, do I smell funny? Because the girls were like snickering about me and like whatever. But like, and I'm like, what? I'm ready to, I'm the soft one. Like I can't fight for anybody. But, like, I'm getting upset, but like she's kind of used to it. But anyway, having that stress with the motherhood aspect, I think she needed some form of control, and money played into that.
Yeah.
And so like growing up, like that's kind of after I got too old for spankings, it was sort of like a the money and like what I provide is how I try to get through what I need to get through or get what I want out of you. And having experienced so much trauma, she was a control freak. So it's just so money is just one of those things that was always so financial independence was huge for me. When I was able to pay my own way on everything, then it was like, all right, now we're going to talk to each other like grown-ups. And my dad had mentioned that at one point he was in school and my mom wanted to go to Emory in Atlanta. She got an opportunity to do a special training there. And he said, he was like, I know it was a good opportunity for her, but then I would not have had a job and she was already acting kind of funny with me about how much money she was making. So, and, she had that personality. My dad's like the soft-smoking country dude. And, he's steadfast, he's stern, but he just, my mom was the confrontational one. My dad was the one who just get quiet. And he was not about to fight, things like that. And so, he said that he just shut it down. And he's like, I will, we're going to stay here. We're going to figure it out because I'm not about to have you hoarding this money over me. And I can see that, like having seen their interactions growing up, that would have 100% been a thing.
Yeah.
But, okay, so what about you, KB?
Okay.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so my mom was a stay-at-home mom, more like a stay-at-home wife. But, but she wasn't really ever home. She didn't work at all. I don't think she ever worked actually when she married my dad. So she came from money. She likes to say they were blessed, thank God. So yeah, she came from money. So when her father passed, he left some money for her. So, and then my father also had his own business for a while there, and he was a contractor, so he built houses. So she didn't have to work or anything. But she did spend a lot of her at home time outside the home. So a lot of the stay-at-home mom thing wasn't a stay-at-home mom thing at all. So yeah, it's really short. She did work.
Right.
She did work, for real.
Yeah.
So she's, I'm sitting here listening to you talk about your mom and her just pushing her children to want to, pretty much better up themselves. Like my mom wants, she would like for us to better up ourselves, yes, but college was never encouraged.
Okay.
It was always like, you don't have to go to college to be successful, which, is true, but it helps.
Yeah.
It helps. If we are homeschoolers, what life experiences do we have to, come here and start something, But, so yeah, she didn't work. She already had money.
Yeah.
So,
Oh man, that's interesting. That explains some things too.
It does.
Yeah.
What about you?
So I have to go through the mother figures in my life. So I started off with my grandmother.
Okay.
And she didn't work. She was old enough to get money from the government. So that's how she lived off it. So I never saw her work. And then so the reason why I was with my mother was because my father was incarcerated for a time.
Mhm.
So after after my real mother was killed, he was really trying his best, trying to take care of me,
Yeah.
you know. And so he ended up going to jail.
Mhm.
After he got out of jail, I started living with him again, and I had his stepmother. She didn't work either. I don't remember her working, but she was a really good influence on me. Um, but I didn't learn anything about financial anything. I was dealing with the trauma.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
I wasn't even I wasn't even observing. So maybe she did something. I don't know. I don't know. But I ended up moving to Tennessee. So my dad realized that it would be better if I moved to Tennessee to live with my aunt and uncle. My uncle is my mother's brother.
Okay.
So he had wanted, when she passed away, he wanted to take me from the very beginning.
Wow.
He always wanted to take care of me. So when I lived with my aunt and uncle, that was around when I was 11, they were both teachers. So my aunt Joyce, she was a high school teacher. My uncle was an elementary school teacher, and he was also a minister of music at his church. He's a maestro. And so I didn't really pay attention to, what they brought in, how my aunt managed the money, how they worked together, and that. I never saw any of that. I just knew what their professions were. And it didn't, like, their professions didn't affect how they raised me. I never thought that they were so into their professions that they couldn't take care of me.
Okay.
I never felt that sense. I felt like from what I can remember, they balanced that pretty well, you know. I think and then when I got into high school, like right before I went into high school, my Aunt Joyce died of cancer. So it was like, man, I had a mom for a minute, you know. I was getting used to that, and then she was gone. And so basically, my uncle, bless his heart, you know, he had to deal with a troubled teenager, you know, and so he didn't have the time to teach me about financial tools, you know what I mean? Like he was trying to survive. He was trying to make sure,
Yeah.
that the bills are paid, and he was following the work of the Lord, and just trying to make sure that I stayed afloat and everything like that, and wasn't trying to kill myself or anything
Yeah.
like that. So, but when I got married and we changed churches, I go to Across All Boundaries Christian Church. Our pastor, her name is Dr. Sheldon Hudson. She is an amazing woman. She is just a jack of all trades. I will say that she, as my pastor, as my apostle, and as my spiritual mother, was the influence. It was the financial influence. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because she not only is a mother, but she's an entrepreneur in many aspects. She has her own herbal line where she makes her. She has gone to school. She is certified. She's a certified herbalist.
Wow.
So she does, the body creams,
Yeah.
the facial oils, the perfume, everything, all that stuff. Even the vitamins and the types of things, the supplements that you're supposed to take to make yourself healthy. She's a seamstress, so she has her own clothing. Like she can tailor make any gown or dress that you want to make. She like I said, she's the head of our church. She does everything.
Yeah.
And she even has like she has her own like little group where she teaches women how to be, trailblazers. So she's just so influential. And when I started when I started paying attention to her and really following under her, I just could see that you can do it all. You know what I mean? But she was so sold out to the Lord. That's the only way. And she was able to do all of that while having a very detrimental health condition. She has like a type of diabetes. She's died 3 times.
Oh, wow. Goodness.
God is not ready for her.
Yeah, she's died 3 times.
Stay on down there.
You know what I mean? She has like a diabetes condition where she can't. I mean, very, very sensitive diet. Anything can turn it the wrong way. So she's very keen to health.
Yeah.
And she's used that I guess you can say that weakness and turned it into a huge, massive strength. So it really inspired me. It really is what catapulted me into my entrepreneurship. So I got that from her.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
awesome.
Gotta meet her.
Yeah, right?
You gotta
You
meet
have her
her.
on the podcast.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Oh man, well that's awesome. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit into this, is because you touched on what you're doing entrepreneurially. So I would like to now talk about your entrepreneurship journey, and what that looks like. So I forgot who I started with the last time.
Me, it was an ink session.
Okay, so you just piggyback off of what you were saying.
Okay, yeah. It wasn't until it wasn't until 2019 that I even had the idea that, I can be an entrepreneur. Because after I went to college, I majored in accounting because I was good at it, but I didn't have a vision for my life. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just was like, well, I'm good at accounting, so let me just try this. And I just wrote it on through to the end. I ended up, after graduating from college, working as a tax preparer for Liberty Tax. I did that for a couple of years, and then I went into corporate accounting for Covenant Health. So that's like a regional hospital, and like a hospital branch. And so I was a staff accountant, corporate accountant there. It wasn't until God made it really clear that I was supposed to go out on my own that I did it. And it was under Dr. Sheldon Hudson's influence and leadership that made me just kind of like do it. Because if it wasn't for God saying, you need to do this, I would have stayed in my cubicle and been happy. I had benefits and all kinds of stuff. And with the hospital, if you work in the hospital, the insurance is really good. But there were just too many messages from different places coinciding all at the same time, where I was like, I have to pay attention to what's happening. The messages that I was getting was so coincidental. I had to make a vision board where I screenshotted the messages that my pastor told me, the messages that a prophet from our church told me, and how it just coincided with, you need to go and buy liberty.
Wow.
So what happened was I got some random email from a coworker that I worked with years ago at Liberty Tax. And she was like, hey, the boss is selling the business, so just wondering if maybe you might want to try to see if you could buy it. And then I told my husband, I was like, this is a funny email. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. And then that same week, one of the prophets from our church who's also in accounting was like, I was thinking maybe, we could start a business in tax. What do you think?
That's crazy.
And then my pastor was like, my pastor just randomly had not talked to anybody.
Yeah.
Had sent me a message and was talking about maybe I should go out on my own. She was like, I know someone who owns two Liberty taxes. I was like, are you kidding me? And then someone at my at Covenant was they put out some announcement that there was a position in the tax department. I'm like, what is going on? And so I had serious imposter syndrome. I had serious insecurity in my worth. I mean, I just felt I didn't have enough experience. I didn't know enough. But I just went and called my old boss and was like, can we just have a meeting? Because I'm thinking I want to take your offer.
Oh, wow.
I had no money.
That's when you know it's God.
Yeah, right?
No money. I literally got in that meeting. I was like, listen, I don't have any money. But I need to, I really think I need to buy this. And then he was so he was just so, he humored me so much. Where it gave me the link, it gave me enough link to figure it out. And so it was it was quite a time period because my husband at the time, we had our daughter, okay, she was about 3 or so. He had went to Birmingham to do adjusting work.
Okay.
It was one of those things where he's like, I need to jump on this because there's these hurricanes and all this stuff, and this is a good opportunity. I need to go to Birmingham to because they were getting paid a lot. Adjusters were getting paid a lot at that time. So he was in Birmingham. It was just me and my daughter, and I'm trying to figure out how to implement this business, buy this business. And what ended up happening was I ended up taking a class with Knoxville Urban League because I knew that if you took the class, passed it, there was an opportunity for them to give you a loan if your business plan was solid enough. And there was also a contest where if you made the best business pitch, you would get $5,000. And then also, on top of that, there would be an opportunity for them to give you a loan to buy the business that you wanted.
Wow.
I ended up I was working at my Covenant job. Then, I was working at my corporate job. And then on the weekends, I would go to that class, picking up my daughter and all that stuff. I finished the class. I won the contest. And then I ended up getting the loan.
Wow.
And I ended up buying that franchise from my boss.
Oh, wow.
And it just so happened after going through all of that, I ended up getting pregnant again. So by the time I had bought the business in 2019, tax season was supposed to start in 2020. So I had my baby boy, Michael, December of 2019.
Oof.
Tax season started in January. So I had the baby, and I took him to work with me.
Yeah, you're the boss now.
Yep.
Yeah, I had. So, mind you, I have not managed anybody. I've never managed anybody.
Wow.
But I ended up having 15 employees off the bat. And I inherited 300 tax clients, and about five bookkeeping clients. And I was figuring it out. This was 2020. So not only was the pandemic started, the stimulus check thing was crazy.
Yeah.
It was a nightmare for every tax preparer. Wow. Shout out to all the tax preparers during the pandemic, because no one knew what was going on. Not even the government knew what was going on.
Wow.
And how and how the stimulus checks related to your tax refund and all those things. So not only was I trying to figure out how to run the business, I was trying to figure out how this tax stimulus thing worked. And then I had to communicate that to my employees and communicate that to the tax clients and take care of my newborn baby in the office.
Oh man.
Oh my goodness.
And so that was the Lord.
Surviving
Yeah.
that is the miracle.
Yeah, right.
I mean, literally, God carried me through that whole year because I don't know how I would have done how I did that. I still don't. And then let's see, I got pregnant again the next tax year. And it was just the same thing because 2021 was just a duplicate of 2020, really. The same types of things. So that's how my entrepreneurship started. It was crazy. Now, but where I am today is completely different from the tax office. So at the end of 2021, I ended my contract with Liberty Tax. And a big reason was because even though I felt accomplished, quote unquote, because that was a really big accomplishment, right? It wasn't worth the price I had to pay with my kids. Because during tax season, I worked every day from open to close, every day. And, when my baby boy got a little bit older, he went home, you know what I mean? So he didn't stay at the office. He went home. He was at home most of the day while I was working. I would be pumping in the office, you know what I mean? I was pumping in the office. Well, before he went home, when he was in the office, number one, I couldn't adjust the lights. It was bright lights everywhere, okay? And there was like a door, but it really wasn't my office wasn't really secluded from everybody very much. So they could hear everything that was going on. So when the baby cried, when it was time for me to breastfeed him, they heard all of that.
Wow.
And they're over here and they're preparing taxes out in the front and everything. It was just so crazy. And if my employees needed something, I had to address them and the baby at the same time. It was crazy. But what was worse was when he was old enough where I could just let him be at home with the husband and the grandparents, and they took care of him while I worked all day because I was pumping and not with him. And I remember when it would be closing, I would be rushing to get home. I would rush to get home just so I could just put him to bed, and half the time I missed it. He was already asleep. So I would just And so I did that for another year, and I just was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And in the midst of that, my uncle who raised me, he ended up having a stroke in 2020, and ended up he needed complete care. He needed full care. So my husband was not only taking care of our children, he was also taking care of my uncle, changing him, doing everything that you would do for someone who can't, because my uncle was paralyzed. And so it was just like, do you want to put your family first, or do you want to chase this dream that you don't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I had to make the decision to just end my contract with Liberty and focus on my family. And I'm glad I did, because when I did that, I had a few more months with my uncle before he died. And then I was able to just recalibrate myself, And one good thing about 2020 is that you were talking about how, Black women, the spike in entrepreneurship went up, and it increased even more once the pandemic hit, right? That's what was good about me. It was that even though I had to let loose all of those clients, I had 300 tax clients, and under that contract, once you end it, you can't, you can't get those clients anymore because they're under contract. I was able to start over virtually as an accountant. I was able to advertise myself, and then also, because I wasn't under a name, a branded name, I was able to craft the niche that I wanted.
Wow.
And so I said I didn't want to serve individuals anymore. I just wanted to focus on business owners.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was a blessing because my niche is towards business owners, more so in the real estate field, and I'm able to set my own hours, work from home, be with my children, and all of that. But I needed that boost, like with all those different messages saying you need to buy liberty.
Yeah.
Because I needed to have the faith that I could be an entrepreneur and do it on my own.
Yeah.
So I literally needed somebody to like push me off a cliff type thing. It's because I'm not the type of person that just someone suggests something and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll try that. Like the bottom has to fall out. Yeah. So that's where I'm at right now. So I do all my accounting work at home. I meet my clients on Zoom across the United States and stuff like that. So
That's great.
That's amazing.
That is.
That's inspiring, you know, and just like that whole process. Yeah, that's what we're here to talk about. Like, and, like the decisions you made, how putting your family first, and you realize that, oh, like I can still do something, you know, like, but having that liberty experience, like I feel like that's necessary.
Yeah.
Because first off, to know how to run like the business, and then to know what the niche needed to be, what you liked, and then also why you're doing it, so that if ever you're like, oh, I don't feel like I could do this or something, like I've done that.
Yeah.
I've done the corporate thing. I've done the franchise thing.
Yeah.
And this is why this, you know, this is good, and you can appreciate that.
Yes, absolutely.
That's awesome.
That is.
Well, what about you, KB? What about you?
Man, where do I even start? So, I am kind of a jack of all trades. I can do pretty much anything, thank the Lord. He's blessed me with that. So, it's like I had to choose. Being a person that can do everything, it's hard picking one thing that you're going to focus on to bring you either an income or, you know. And so that's kind of where I was. I started with everything else. Like I cooked for a little bit, baked for a little bit, sold some of them. I sew, so I started sewing and thinking, oh, I could do a sewing business. That is hard. Like sewing, that is, I don't know how people do it, but that is crazy. So I cleaned houses for a little bit. And then I've always wanted to be in healthcare. At one point I was like low-key studying to do midwifery under.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because I wanted to also go back to Liberia and just like educate the women there. Because the midwifery situation and just childbirth there, most of the people almost always die.
Wow.
Or either the mother or both or the child. It's never, it's always one or the other. For some odd reason, I don't know. So that was something I wanted to do. Go to school, be a midwife or a nurse or something, and go and teach the people. That is still something I want to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
redeems time.
Right? So when we moved here to Knoxville in 2017, my sister-in-law and pretty much everybody else we kind of knew from our orphanage followed us a little bit. And so I started braiding my sister-in-law's hair and then my little sister's hair, and people would see it and be like, oh, this is, who did your hair? And at that point, I was not good at all. They thought I was great. I'm like, looking back now, that is not it. So, I would just braid her hair. She would go to work and people would see it, or, we'll be out and about, people would see it. Or I would braid my own hair and people would be like, who did your hair? And I'm pretty humble. I don't like to tell people when I do things. I'm like, I did it, So um, it wasn't until last year, 2023, when we came back. We went to Liberia in 2022 and came back in 2023. You know, we were there for like 6 weeks, and I had been working in 2022. I was working doing home health because if I'm always working for myself. So I had been working home health kind of under my own name, you know, not under any.
That's a lot.
It is. It is. It was a lot because
I appreciate
he
that.
was a he's a uh he used to have polio when he was a kid, so
Oh, wow.
now he doesn't walk or anything.
Oh, wow.
So he's wheelchair bound, and you have to help him with everything. And I did that for a long time, you know, for like 2 years. He was great. It paid great, and I was doing that when I started my hair braiding business last year. So you know, everybody's like, "You do great. You may as well just make it into something." You know, I was braiding. I didn't really know what to price people because I'm like, I mean, I didn't know what to charge people because I'm like, I don't want to overcharge people,
Mm-hmm.
but also I'm spending this amount of time
Yes.
and products,
Yes.
you know, on people. So I didn't have to take out any loan, thank goodness. My sister-in-law paid for me to go to the classes to get my license, and you know, she was like, I'm going to invest in you.
Oh, wow.
You know, so she did that. I went to the classes, you know, got my license, and then it was time to find a place. And I was looking everywhere, and everywhere it's so expensive because at this point I don't have any money myself, and everything is like $1,000 a month, and I'm like, I don't even think I'm gonna be bringing in that much right now, you know. And one day I was just scrolling on Facebook and looking for something, you know, that I could, you know, call my own, and I went to the Black Knoxville something. I don't remember what the page is called. And I saw the little Burlington Business Center had posted on there. They were looking for people to come and rent out their rooms. And I was like, oh, that's cool. How much is it? You know, and it was like 600 to, you know, one of the other rooms was 650. I'm like, oh, that's great. So I went, you know, and I toured it, and I signed a lease, you know, and started my little business there. You know, registered the business online, all of that. It was great, and I'm just grateful I didn't have to take out any loans,
Mm-hmm.
which was great because I was like, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to pay this back because the braiding business is great, but there's a season for braiding.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually had to close out my shop this winter. Braiding is not. In the winter, it is dead. Nobody, you know, because in summer, everybody's going on vacation.
Yeah.
They're going to be in the water. Nobody wants to touch the
Sure.
hair. So, like, right now, I am booked. I am averaging 2 clients a day right now. And it's great. I love it. You know, in the summertime, I'm busy. But the winter came, and I'm like, you know, I hear crickets, and I'm like, what's happening here? You know, so I was like, I think I need to go back home. But, you know, I told my clients I'm going back. They all still followed me. I'm like, thank the Lord, because, you know, I still need this income, but at least I'm not paying $650 every month for nothing, you know, because in December, January, I was like, I'm losing money. I'm paying and I'm not getting anything back. So, yeah, that's kind of my business right now. And, you know, my clients love me. I thank God for that because, you know, I want, like, when they bring their styles, I'm like, I have to get it perfect. I'm a perfectionist. If it's not good, please tell me so I can redo it. But they're always like, oh, it's great. I'm like, are you sure? You know, things like that. But it's really great. I love the braiding business. Like, now I actually want to start, hopefully, teaching classes. It's hard. Braiding is hard on my body. Like, yesterday, the 3 clients I had, my feet hurt, my shoulders hurt, my hands hurt. I have carpal tunnel from braiding. So some days I'm crying braiding, you know, but they're not seeing that, you know. Right. And I love doing it, helping people feel better, feel good about themselves, you know, feeling like you're beautiful because, but yeah, I'm back home and I love it. My money's staying in my pocket. I hope eventually to like build a little shed in the back of my house and, brand it and make it my own. But for now, we'll see where the Lord leads me. For now, I'm at home and I'm enjoying it. And my kids are with me, so I don't. That's the thing about having your own business, your kids, because my kids are my big thing. I don't want other people raising my children. Like, when you turn 5, I'll send you to school. That's fine. And I thought about homeschooling for a little bit, but I don't need to have to homeschool.
Yeah.
We live in Oak Ridge. The schools are amazing, So my little ones are with me until they're about 5, and then I'll send you off. But yeah, I like having my business and my kids, even though they can be loud at times when my clients are trying to relax. Because I got the shop so my clients could relax and I don't have to be with my kids, or the kids will have to, make all the noise. But all my clients are, almost all of them are mothers anyway, so they're like, I don't mind.
I don't hear anything.
Yeah, right. Right. Yeah, that's the story.
Okay.
But I, just more on the money or Liberia part. I do still want to go to school for something medical, and because my heart is to go back to Liberia and just teach. The medical system is so messed up. So having the business is helping me just build money to, if I need to pay for my school myself, or if I need to pay for my own travels to go to Liberia, that's going to help. But that's where it's at. Like in the end, if I'm not making the money, it's okay. But
There's a bigger.
Yeah, it's a whole bigger picture that I'm leaning towards with this. But yeah, so
that's amazing.
This is powerful.
Yes. Business with purpose.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So, my story. Let's see. I decided I wanted to be an entrepreneur. It was like 2008. I was at school in Atlanta. I was at Emory University, and the recession happened, and I had pretty much a full ride to that school. And it's a private university, so the cost of attendance is like $50,000 a year. So that was already a blessing. But then the pandemic hit, and I lost a lot of my financial aid because they couldn't cover it. And there was one month where I got let go from my job, because in Atlanta during, not the pandemic, but the financial crisis or whatever.
Okay.
In Atlanta, you had people who had like master's degrees working at Chick-fil-A. You know what I mean? Like it hit so bad in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And so like my job ended up letting me go, and also I was overwhelmed because I had been working so much that my grades started to slip. So then I lost a scholarship, and there was one month where I couldn't come up with my half of the rent. So I was like, hey everybody, I went to like the store and I spent like $20 on like, some like face masks, some like lavender and stuff like that. And I was like, anybody wants a spa day? Like come to my apartment and
oh my gosh, that is
pay me $20 for this or pay me whatever for that. And I got little bath bombs and stuff like that.
Oh my gosh.
I always like things like that. And I hardly made any money. My friends, like, one of my friends made a flyer. She sent it out on like the system to like every organization that we knew. And people came to support. But I remember just feeling like I got some energy out of it, and eventually I was able to like, pay my stuff, and I wound up leaving Emory and going to school in state in South Carolina because it was cheaper. But yeah, that's when like the bug hit me, and I was like, I want to be an entrepreneur one day. And so after I finished at college in Charleston, I got my master's in business because I figured that would be important for being an entrepreneur, but most major entrepreneurs didn't study.
They don't.
The people with MBAs work for the people
Yeah.
who started the business.
Yes.
And so I got in a whole bunch of debt to find that out. So I wound up just needing to get a job soon after that because I didn't have an idea. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I'm like, I don't know what business I want to start. So I did budgeting for the city of Charleston. That was terrible. Worked in a toxic culture.
Oh man.
Like literally had like a budget thrown at me And I was
accounting,
hated.
and I don't like budgeting. I don't like budgeting. That sounds horrible.
It was rough, and it was like I was in a division where there's a lot of divas, and I had to help create budgets. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm working for government. We're supposed to present a balanced budget. You know, no profit, no loss. Apparently, they had never balanced the budget in this division. So me coming in as a 23-year-old, like, we're gonna stick to the budget. People hated me. It was like gang stalking, bullying. Like, it was just like it was hard. And I think I had like PTSD after that job. Like, it was like I remember talking about it like 6 months after I left and crying. Like, it was for doing my job. So I realized very soon into that, I was like, I don't want to work for government. And I love nonprofits, but I would prefer not to work for a nonprofit, but to make money to be able to donate to them and say, do with it what you need. Because those stipulations can put so much pressure on an organization.
Yes.
And so I left that, and I was unemployed for like a year and a half. I was trying to do like little things here and there, but like I wound up having to move in, live with my dad. And then Target was hiring managers, and they were starting off with a good salary. I was like, what, retail was paying this? Full benefits, all of that. And so I started doing human resources for Target. And they heard my story. Like, I basically shared, I was like, I was able to turn around a toxic environment, do all those things. And they're like, oh, we should put you in a toxic environment because you're used to it.
Gosh.
They're like, this store has like all the turnover. They've had like, this many managers in this amount of time. So it's like from one toxic environment to another.
Oh my gosh.
And I feel like the Lord was preparing me for something, like looking back. But I was just like, why do I keep, like, is it me? Like, why do I keep encountering this? And it was like, I knew how to navigate it. So then it's like, let's just punish you. Like, not punish you, but it's like, we need somebody who's gonna stay and stick to it. And so all this time I knew I eventually wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I needed to be able to stand on my own 2 feet. So that job allowed me to move out on my own. I was able to get my own car, pay my own bills. And then I wound up getting into a toxic relationship with a guy from Tennessee. Which I met him on the street while he was on vacation.
Oh wow.
And I was miserable at the time, and I was like, I remember I don't know if I should say all this, but I remember that the first night that we met, I was like, you promise not to kill me? And he goes, I was thinking about stabbing you, but then we started kissing and I changed my mind. So that he didn't kill me, but he was crazy.
Look, I got too many of those stories.
So yeah, that's where I was mentally and emotionally, and I'm so grateful that I had a stable job because we fell in love. We wound up talking about getting engaged. So then I was like, okay, well, he had a house out here, and I just like had like a tiny little studio apartment in Charleston. So I was like, okay, I'll move out there, because I'm infatuated. I don't think I was even in love. Just like, it was just something that I could look forward to. I'd been so lonely and miserable. And so then I moved out to, my job wound up, it took them a year to transfer me. But then they gave me 2 weeks notice. And by the time they transferred me, he and I had broken up. I realized like it was toxic. I started going back to church again. And then I get here, I had no notice. So I couldn't even find a place to stay. So I was staying in a hotel off Asheville Highway. And I'm going to work, and they're like, you don't need to be staying in a motel in Asheville Highway. And I was like, I don't know this place that well.
Well, I used to live in those parts. No.
And I'm like getting off of work at like 11, 12 sometimes, and like going in, and there's people looking at me. Like, I'm like, let me get in this motel real fast.
I'm about to cross paths.
And so then his mom actually reached out to me, and she was like, he told me you moved into town. She's such a sweet lady. I think I stayed in that relationship for longer than I needed to because of her. Like, she was one of those people who, she wanted the best for her son, but she knew he was toxic. And so I knew, like, if ever I needed to call her, I could probably call her at 4 a.m. and she'd be like, come stay with me.
Wow.
She'd been through so much in her life. And so, like, she was just so kind. She goes, I know he loves you. I don't know how he's been treating you, but, he reminds me of his dad before he died. And she's crying on the phone, and then I'm crying. So we get back together and stay. And then I move in with him. mistake.
Ooh.
And yeah, that lasted like 7 months before I was able to get my own place.
Oh, man.
And he wound up losing his job, so I was paying for everything. I was paying his mortgage. I was paying his car bill. I was paying for his son's presents.
Oh,
And
girl.
he was in like litigation for an injury, and then he wound up getting paid. He wound up winning $850,000, and then didn't tell me when
Please
he got
don't
the
tell
money,
me.
and then was like,
So
"You
it's
didn't
coming.
support me. You weren't."
Oh,
And that was from the
no, he
Lord.
did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just like let this man act up so I can leave.
Girl.
Like, because I was so stuck, and I knew that if I didn't reach the final straw, I'd come back. It'd be one of those back and forth kind of things.
Yep.
And so one day, I come back, all my stuff is on the porch
Oh my.
for no reason.
Oh my God.
And he was just like, "You can go." And I remember I was like, "Okay." It was the last straw.
Yeah.
And I was like, "I'm gonna go in, make sure you didn't miss anything."
Yeah.
And he's like, "No, I'll go." And I said, "No, I'm gonna go in here. I'm gonna get all my stuff."
Yeah.
And then I hopped in my car, and I was literally giggling on the way to my apartment because I was like, "That's
Like,
what I needed."
Thank you, Lord, for
That's-
the sign.
I was like, I can't blame myself for this. You know, there's so many times I gaslight myself. Can't blame myself for this. And so that's like where I was like, I will never be in a position like this again, where I was dependent. Like I couldn't move for a while because I was paying all of his bills and I didn't have money to leave. And so it was just like, okay, now I'm going to work on taking care of myself. And so that has informed a lot of my decisions, and why I try to always have money and a way to make money. Like I'm technically a stay-at-home mom, but I'm always trying to hustle. So,
Right,
you know,
right,
so I
right.
have something because I can't be that vulnerable
Yeah.
again. And so anyway, I'd always been dabbling in things here and there. I started modeling and acting. I started on my 30th birthday. That was my gift to myself. And then I started doing real estate. When I got married, I left the Target job because it just was not good work-life balance for a family or a marriage. Like I knew I'd be miserable. And so I started doing real estate. Did okay with that. And then I decided I wanted to start building a career in something else. So I did training to become a legal mediator. And that was actually, it was a process of preparing for that where I realized that I needed something flexible because I didn't feel comfortable leaving my son with other people. I had there was an incident with like a child care program, just twice a week, but he was 6 months when I started putting him in there so I could get prepared, and they called him a disturbance. They were saying like
6 months.
yeah,
A
yes.
disturbance?
Yeah.
All 6 months old.
Right.
Those are disturbances.
Right, they had a problem with he was still drinking breast milk at the time. He didn't have any teeth, so we weren't really giving him a lot of food. And so we'd asked them not to. They were feeding these kids like hot dogs and popsicles. It was like, please don't give him that. And I think they were offended.
Oh my God.
So then it was like he's miserable because he can't eat, but the other kids are eating. And we had a parent-teacher conference about it. So then I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to finish the month out. Thank you so much for all that you've done.
Yeah.
He's just not ready for this. And
Well,
then
every
that
woman.
day they called me early. They're like, he's upset. Like, you need to just come get him. And he had bruises like that looked like fingerprints on his arm
No.
and not on his head. And nobody gave me any. There was no like, oh, he fell or oh, something like that. There was no explanation.
Oh, no.
So I'm in my mind like, burn the place down. You know?
Right, yeah.
But after that, I was like, yeah, I don't trust
I
anyone.
don't blame you. Yeah.
And I got a little depressed because I was like, I can't do what I thought. I thought that I was gonna go back full time, and I'm like, like I can't. Like I'm gonna kill somebody. Like so, I need to find something that I can do where like I am the primary caregiver of my children, at least until they can talk and tell me this happened or something like that. And so that's when I started just trying to find a way to like really exploring different forms of entrepreneurship and trying different things. And part of the inspiration for having this conversation, because I'm still trying to figure it out. And I'm a volunteer mediator for Anderson County right now, and I'm hoping to turn that into something to make money, in the near future. But yeah, that's kind of what's gotten me inspired my view of entrepreneurship right now.
Yeah.
So
You can do it all.
yeah.
Can you take a bathroom break?
Yes. Okay, so we're gonna pause for a bathroom break. Like we got about 20 more minutes.
Okay.
So yes, you go ahead and go.
Do a clap whenever you're ready. Okay, one clap, or at least at the same time. We'll go with it.
All right, so the next question, it's going to be kind of a compound question. It's going to be kind of the last one I want to cover. And this question is, how has entrepreneurship impacted how you mother, and what is the vision? It's not it's two questions. And what is the vision that God has given you for motherhood in your family? So I'll start with you.
Okay, so what is the vision? And what was the other question?
And how has entrepreneurship impacted the way that you mother?
Oh, okay. So how it's impacted the way I mother? Oh, Lord. I'd say, I think it's just, so looking at like how my mother raised us, and you don't have to go to school to be a successful or whatever. I think that was one lesson that I actually learned from her that has helped me a lot. And I'm not going to say I would say the same to my child, but I think, because I actually didn't go to college, and I'm not successful, but, pretty small, right? So my child, like, I'm hoping my kid can look at me and see that I am trying to do something that benefits them by them being with me as I work, or by them being just around and seeing my work ethics and just really just that. I'm hoping that as I live out just trying to be an entrepreneur, because I can really say I'm too big into it right now, but just trying to be that they can see that and say, oh, that's something I'm going to learn from my mom and hopefully take into the next, like, as I grow up. She was working maybe all the time, but she's there for us. She had all her clients. Either when she's going, she will take us with us to the clients, because my clients sometimes will be like, bring your kids, or just having them with me all the time I love it. I love my kids so much, so I can't imagine working, outside of my home all the time and not having them with me. Does that answer the question a little?
Yeah.
And then my relationship with God.
The vision that you have for motherhood.
Oh, the vision
that God has given you.
Okay.
You feel like God is giving you.
Right. Sorry.
I made
it
it
was
complicated.
2 questions.
Yes,
so.
it was just 2 completely different questions. It wasn't a compound question.
Right. So the vision, how I said I've come back to, or the Lord has drawn me back to Him recently, and it's been kind of complicated because I'm reading my Bible and it's like, women should not work outside the home, and I'm just like, oh my God, how am I supposed to make money in 2024? Because we can live off of one income in 2024. Like, why shouldn't, So it's a little bit, I'm kind of fighting it. So I think that's some of the reasons why working in my home is great, because, I don't have to work outside the home, but I can still work and make something, to help my family. And, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think, it's the vision. Yeah, really. That's just it. Just working in my home, I guess, is that vision. Because always it was like, oh, I always wanted to just grow up, be a stay-at-home mom, or just, I don't have to work. My husband's going to make all the money, but it's not reality in 2024. Like, I mean, I wish it would be, but it's not. So, just simple answer, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, to answer your first question, which is
Yeah,
How
right.
has entrepreneurship impacted the way you mother?
right. Okay, so one thing that entrepreneurship has forced me to learn how to do and improve on is creating systems.
Mm.
Because I mean, you can't. There's no way to be able to split yourself in two. You have to find some hacks, and you have to a sustainable way of doing things where you're not doing everything. So when I was working at Liberty, I was trying to make templates and systems and stuff for my employees, for the clients and things like that, so that I wouldn't have to keep reteaching stuff over and over again. And it was very frustrating because you can't make everybody follow, what you want them to do.
Yeah.
And there was so many of it. It was such a huge. There was a lot that I was trying to communicate, but now that it's just me. I took what I learned from that and am implementing it in my own business. So I'm literally writing out everything that I do, the step-by-step things that I do for my own business. I literally just write out everything. I document everything that I do so that, number one, it's easier for me to do it the next time. I can just follow what I do. And then if I want to hire somebody else, which I'm considering to help out, they can follow that same, So I'm building up an infrastructure for the future. That's definitely something that entrepreneurship is helping to do. And then also even with like just around the house, you know what I mean? Like, this is what your routine should be. Let me write you out like a little printout sheet and post it on your door. This is Rosita's routine. This is Michael's routine. You know what I mean? Setting the people in my household up with tools that help them. Because honestly, like, the household is kind of like a business in itself. You know what I mean? Sometimes you have to run it that way.
Yeah.
Everybody, you know what I mean? So now my kids are old enough where they can take responsibility over something.
Yeah.
And then you want to build them up on that so they can have pride in that, you know? So my 3-year-old, she has ownership over making sure the toilet paper container is filled up to the top. Oh, you should see the smile on her face every time she puts it in there. I'm like, Bunny, the toilet paper needs to be filled up. She's like, okay, mommy.
Too cute.
Yeah.
My job.
Yes, and so that is something that entrepreneurship has helped me with. And you want
God's vision for mothering in your family.
God's vision for mothering in my family. Well, I'll have to say that I had to talk about how I didn't have a vision to talk about what the vision is now.
Okay.
Because of the struggle that I went through with not having a mother and then making a whole bunch of mistakes and then doing things that I thought would make me not worthy of being a mother. So we're talking about, the living promiscuously and the drugs and the alcohol that I went through in my 20s. I ended up having abortions. And so I ended up listening to the lie of the enemy, which says, you're not worthy of it. You need to own this guilt and shame, and you'll never be able to make it right now. You messed up. You know what I mean? Like, and you're not worthy of it now. So I had to really, like, the only way that I could get out of that was by Jesus Christ. Like, I mean, there's no way I could get out of that guilt. That's guilty. I mean, that is heavy. And so I had to fight past that lie to even believe that I could be a mother, a worthy mother. And then once I became a mother, would I be a good one, you know? So the vision was non-existent for a while. It was almost like that's not for me, you know? It was only after I was able to listen to what Jesus was telling me. But he kept on throughout this whole process trying to make me realize that I am meant to be a mother, that what he did on the cross was for the mistakes that I did. And that's not my identity, you know? So the vision that I have, the vision that God has given me for my kids now has changed and morphed and matured into something different, you know? I remember when I first had Rosita, my oldest daughter, I just wanted her to be you know what I mean? Like she's gotta meet these, she's gotta know her colors by this age, okay? She needs to blah blah blah. She has to be perfect. She has to have bows in her hair every day. You know what I mean? Like everything has to be, because I had to make up for the mistakes of my past. You know what I mean? Like I was coming at motherhood from an angle of I gotta fix my mistakes. I have to overcompensate. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that is not the place to mother at all. Yeah. Because even at a young age, I realized that she could sense my expectations on her. Yeah. You know? And now now that I'm free from the guilt and the shame of my past, I'm able to take ownership in just who I am, what God has made me to be, and then look at my children for the individuals that they are. Yeah. You know, there's a verse in the Bible that talks about how your quiver is full, you know? And I look at that as, you know, our children are arrows, you know what I mean? So that means that there's a purpose within each one of our children. You raise them up and then you shoot them out into the world so that they can fulfill their purpose. So I'm not my whole approach is not trying to get them to meet certain standards. It's like, okay, I need to look and pay attention to who you are. Like, who are you? How did God create you? And how can I nourish that? Yeah. Whether, you know, it be college or not, I'm trying to make sure that the gift that I can see that's in my kids, whatever gift that God has put in them, gifts or, you know, tendencies, characteristics, that I can nourish that so that they can actually excel in that. Because once they know who they are, because I had identity issues. Yeah. But my children aren't going to have identity issues. Yeah. They're going to know who they are. And then, I mean, like, as far as the income is concerned, if you know who you are, you can do anything. Yeah. You know what I mean? So my vision is to know who my children are. Yeah. To know who they are and focus on that. And then wherever God wants to lead them, then, you know, he can lead them there, you know? But, yeah.
That's awesome.
It took a long time to figure just that little piece out.
And that's like a lifelong process, but also you're breaking those generational curses.
Yeah.
Like as you're intentionally pursuing those things.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
This is good. I'm learning from y'all.
I'm learning from y'all.
Me too. Seriously.
Okay, so I'll close this out in answering the question, and then we'll wrap. So I got to remind myself of the question. How has entrepreneurship impacted the way that I mother? So recognizing, well, I knew that I always wanted to be an entrepreneur before I had kids. But then I think that entrepreneurship can give me the opportunity to prioritize them and the time that I spend with them. And I think that also I like the idea of my kids being able to see me do something, to see me work, so they can learn from me. You know, it's like if I have to go to like some sort of meeting, I don't know, anything random, you know, and they have to see me interacting with a client or something like that. Those are life skills that they can take with them. You know, it's not taking something from them, it's adding to them. And so I get kind of excited about the idea of them being able to be a part of it and learn certain skills that way, because I was very academic growing up, and it was always like, when you go to college, you know, and all that, and you know, like my goal was to go to as elite a college that I could, and then maybe I'd be this elite person and all these things, and then, you know, the path that I've taken, I've got a lot of debt, but like I could, you know, everything is working together for my good, but then also I'm like, I could have just done that. You know what I mean? And so, you know, God's vision for my family and how I mother and things like that. One thing you touched on was just like knowing your children. That's big to me. Like before I had kids, it was like I was still in that academic mindset. I want them to be able to have every opportunity, and that's going to be like trying to, you know, if they want to go to Harvard, like I got to get them ready, and it's going to be all this. And then when I had my son, from birth, his personality is so different from mine. I was like, you are your own human.
I got one of those.
You are like God is just giving me a human that is like, you got your own personality, you got your own thoughts, your own will, your own desire, and like, I felt a weightiness of responsibility. Like I am just here to steward you, because that personality is just like. But I'm also really excited about it because there's so many aspects of who he is naturally that it has taken me decades to be able to access. And so for me, like I want to protect those elements. So like my son, he was born with confidence. He did not have a people-pleasing bone in his body from birth. Like I could sense it, and one of the things that my bosses, the feedback they would often give me was, you lack confidence. And so seeing that in him from the beginning, I'm like, I got to protect that, because it's so important. I've seen people who were completely unqualified get promoted past me time and time again just because they had confidence. Didn't know what they were doing, but they knew how to talk the talk and walk the walk. And it's like, that is so important. And I don't want anybody to take that. And there was a time in my life where I did have confidence, but somewhere along the way, like I lost it. Like I felt got beat down or something like that. And I felt like maybe I was unprotected. And, you know, part of it was the way that my mom tried to protect me was by tearing it down, and then I just didn't have it, you know.
They just didn't know.
And so, like, I'm like, okay, I need to protect that. And then with my daughter, the first, like, I have a word that, like, just their personalities from the beginning. Like hers is joy. Like she had just innate joy from the beginning. I'm like, I gotta protect that. Like, and so that feeling of being a protector, and like not only that, but like this innocence. My son, he looks at you like he's a 60-year-old man. Like the looks in his eyes. And then my daughter, she just like smiles at everyone, and she's so sweet. And I don't want her to feel bad for that. I want her to be wise and discerning, but I also, like, that's a gift. And it's a gift to other people too. So I want to be able to teach her how to navigate that and protect that as well, because that actually is a big aspect of how I was in my personality. And so that's like my vision, is being a good steward of them, cultivating the gifts that they've been given, and like, you know, reflecting Jesus to them so that they can figure out whatever it is. And that's actually taken a lot of pressure off me. Like protecting small children is a lot of pressure, because they're always trying to unalive themselves, it seems like. At least my son is. But then it's not like I have to give them, like, they got to go to Harvard and become a doctor. And like no, there's something in them that is meant for the world, but I don't have to figure that out. I just have to nurture that in them. So that is my vision. Well, that was
great.
Thank you guys. This is my first podcast. And all of our first podcasts. And so one thing that I want to say, I'm just going to look at my phone for a second so I can make sure that I cover everything. Okay. Well, that's all for now. Special thanks to The Bottom for hosting us in their podcast studio. to Dash of all trades, for being our sound engineer.
He's awesome.
And thank you for joining us. If you were inspired, if you like what you saw, please like and subscribe. If you'd like more information about our lovely guests, it will be in the description. And until next time, be blessed, don't stress, and that's all.
Good.